Well, welcome along everybody to episode 2 of the Everything Endurance Beyond the Ultimate podcast. I'm Chris and this is...
I'm Will.
We haven't worked on our introduction yet, we should probably do that. We've got a special guest with us today, Will.
Yeah, I think we might be over-egging the pudding a bit saying special, but we've got a decent guest today at least, in Mr. Shane Benzie from Running Reborn.
Hi everybody.
Well, as I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but on our camera, Shane has took the liberty of upping the game by going outside to record this, which is it's basically setting the bar for any other guest.
Yeah, this gives everyone else something to aim for, whereas we might just now cut to a little bit of the video that we're recording in Chris's spare bedroom, which is markedly less glamorous.
Yeah. Our budget dictates that I'm on the emergency chair at the minute. We haven't got 2 chairs yet. We're going to work on that. But welcome along anyway, Shane.
Thank you very much. I'm thinking Eric and Ernie over there.
I have a slight little drum roll as well. We've got a sound effects board for any poor jokes over the next couple of podcasts. We have a drum roll as well. So we are nothing but prepared. So we sent a little thing out to all of our guests, and it kind of just gives a little bit of a feeler to what our guests are about. Now, we've got a note here that you would like a white tiger and a bottle of Moe in your dressing room for this gig, is that?
Yeah, preferably both chilled. That would be good.
A chilled white tiger, in the sense of the white tiger being calm or being cold?
Calm. Cold Moe, calm tiger.
Well, okay, I mean, that's the campest request that we're probably going to get for anything, but we'll work on that. But yeah, for the people that don't know Shane, he's a running technique coach and movement specialist is probably the best way to describe you, would you say?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Well, it's what you wrote down yesterday is how we should describe it.
Probably spelled specialist wrong, but yeah, that's where I am.
But yeah, for the people that don't know you, Shane, let's try and introduce you as well as we can. So, who are you, Shane Benzie?
So I work as a running technique analyst and coach, and I do a lot of research to kind of back up my coaching. So a lot of my work is based on creating efficient movement, and basically following natural movement, or what I perceive as natural movement. So I spend a lot of time traveling around, worked on 6 continents in the last few years, often in extreme environments, often with you guys, looking at how people move in different parts of the world and on different types of terrain, trying to understand how, as a species, we move. And then kind of taking those really clever sort of gifts that Mother Nature gave us and kind of turning those into coaching protocols so that we can all kind of move better, if you like.
Wow. That's Shane Benzie.
Yeah, right there. Fantastic. That was significantly better than our introduction. It's greatly appreciated.
Well, it could only go one way, couldn't it, really?
So how long have you been doing this, Shane? How long have you been in the game?
So about 7 years ago, I went out to America so I've been an ultra runner for some time. But about 7 years ago, I went out to America to study and qualify as a running coach. And that was great. Learned lots of stuff. And came back from the US and then started to coach. But really started to come up with more questions than I had answers for. And so really kind of thought to myself, well, right, how do I find these answers about our movement? And so I basically started going out to where I thought I would find the best runners in the world. So I started to spend time in Africa, in Ethiopia and Kenya, and now Uganda as well. And that's where a lot of my schooling was done, understanding natural movement, because I think we'd all agree, the East Africans move very, very well.
They can run. They've got a good reputation for it, yeah.
They absolutely can run, with not a lot of effort. So sort of 6 years ago, I started traveling to Africa and started sort of understanding movement from people around the world, and it's kind of just gone on from there. I spend time with you guys, in extreme environments, in jungle environments, on the ice, deserts. So, the work has just kind of really gone on from there. I do a lot of my own research. I have a really good research partner in the University of Kent, who have a great collection of minds with regards to endurance performance. So I do a lot of research as well. So it's Without sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it's very much an ongoing journey, understanding, how we should move, treating ourselves as a species almost, not trying to buy our way out of trouble with lots of exciting kids and stuff like that, but really just looking at ourselves as an animal, as a species, and looking at how we should move one.
Going back to basics, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely right. And which I think we don't do enough. I think, if you look at forums for races and for coaching and for training, all of the questions will be about kit, hydration, nutrition, mileage plans, etc., etc. It's very rare you will actually find people talking about how we should transport all of that across the ice or through the jungle or over the desert. How we actually move is incredibly fundamental to racing and taking on challenges, and yet it's something we really don't pay much attention to, I don't think.
It's madness as well when you're looking at something that's a repetitive movement. You think you'd nail that technique first before you go on, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, if you do there is no such a thing as an average multi-day event, but if you do a multi-day race, you're probably going to do somewhere in the region of 300 to 325,000 strides. So if every one of those 325,000 strides was taken on with maximum efficiency, and we kind of had a really good idea of what's going on whilst we're moving, we can make some very big differences to how we move. And basically with multi-day events, you're essentially sort of trying to stave off exhaustion all the time. So if we can move better with better posture, we're very elastic as a species, so if we can join in with the elastic energy that we create when we move, maximize the proprioception of the foot, a lot of our work is done for us. Not only would we stand a better chance of finishing the challenge, we'd actually get our head up and enjoy it more as well, which is actually really important in some of these amazing environments.
Enjoying a multi-stage ultra? Madness. Madness.
Good point.
Coming from a slightly different point of view myself, as someone who's really only just started getting into the madness, I guess when I first started out at this, the idea I had in my head is I was doing some running, and what I needed to do was just a lot more running, and that's how my training would progress. And I guess it was listening into you and Chris having a conversation at one point, and you were talking at quite some length just about how my foot should strike the floor. And it wasn't me in particular, I think it was just a live Facebook thing you were doing. And it blew me away a little bit, because it was the first time I'd actually considered thinking about how my legs and my feet are moving while I'm running, and it was something that really stuck with me. But it wasn't something that I found easy to find. So if you're in my position, if you're just getting into this, where do I begin? Where do I begin to think about my running form?
Well, I suppose the obvious thing to do is to go to the internet, because that's pretty much what we all do now, isn't it? We just revert to Google on anything that we want to find out. One of the great things about running, but also one of the difficult things about running, is it's pretty subjective. So you'll get a lot of information if you go onto the internet, go onto YouTube, etc. You'll get a lot of different type of information from people who have a different sort of point of view on things. Mine is, slightly different from some people's. Mine is really born not from any training courses that I've been on or any franchise that I bought into. My thought processes are pretty much on the back of what I've seen as I've travelled and working with athletes and coaches around the world, and kind of seen what works. So I think it's a big weakness from a lot of coaches that actually we don't really give great information online, or something that you can just tap into. It's often, and it is best available, I guess, from actually working with a coach, because everybody's, your movement is like your fingerprint. Everybody moves differently, and you're absolutely right, Will. Footfall is very, very important, but the big thing that we kind of forget is that your foot is only really going to land where the rest of your body puts it. It's kind of at the end of your running chain. We land on our feet, so we kind of think it's the start of our running chain, but actually it's the end. So what you do with your posture, what you do with your arms, what you do with your cadence will have a big bearing on where your foot lands. So it's kind of getting the whole picture right, if you know what I mean.
So yeah, basically you could argue that there are things that you would look for that are consistent across a runner. So you would look for certain things that you would say, yeah, that's good, that's bad, but there's no exact right way to run for everyone. There's no universal way, because everyone moves differently.
Yeah, I think there's a template of how how I would say our species should run.
Yeah.
And generally, we can work with that. Some people may have a contraindication that doesn't allow a certain joint or something to work in a certain way, but generally a full foot landing or what I would call a tripod type style landing for the foot creates instant stability, ensures maximum proprioception from the foot, allows the arch to work as the core stability for the foot. We can pretty much all do that. It's just kind of understanding how to do that. And as I say, it's not just a matter of running around and planting your feet. That's kind of biomechanically incorrect and everything goes wrong from there. It's getting the fundamentals of our posture and our arms and our cadence right. Then really our feet will land all pretty much where we want them to land. A lot of the work I do is about getting the runner to see themselves. It's very, very difficult to learn from a book. It's very, very difficult to learn from a YouTube clip or even a podcast. Really, the ideal thing is to get runners looking at themselves, seeing how we move, because often we move in a different way than we perceive. We think we're moving like something out of Chariots of Fire, when often it's very, very different. So it's analysing your movement with video analysis, and I personally use some very clever movement sensors as well that allow us to understand sort of how the body's loading as well to sort of create efficiency.
Which is amazing. I mean, we've seen that on the races and stuff, and the data you get back's pretty incredible. I suppose what we also want to kind of get across to our listeners as well is just the simple basic stuff that they could be doing before they get to that point. So before they even get to someone like you, or they want that analysis and things like that, are there any kind of postural cues that they could be doing? Is there anything that they could be doing just on the cheap that will make them more aware of what a good posture would be, or what a good form would be, what good practice would be?
I think one of the big things that runners can change straight away for no cost and can start working on it this afternoon, and something that's incredibly fundamental to our movement or our efficiency of movement, is cadence. Now, for runners, many runners will understand what cadence is. For those that don't, cadence is basically a way of counting how many times your feet hit the ground in a minute. Okay. Typically, I think if you look at the average runner, especially the average ultra runner, they will often move with a cadence of around about 160 after they've been moving for any particular time. So a bit slower than really our species should kind of move at. Our kind of optimum cadence, as far as science is leading us at the moment, and we're actually just doing some research on this, but our kind of optimum cadence is 180. Okay. And one of the big reasons for that is that when we move, we create a lot of elastic energy, and that elastic energy has a frequency. So if we move at the right cadence, we kind of sink in with the creation, store, and release of elastic energy. So if we're moving at a 180 cadence, we're constantly creating elastic energy, and that elastic energy is helping to propel us. So every runner out there listening now, whether they be experienced or just getting into running for the first time, can straight away start to analyse their cadence. You can download a free metronome to your smartphone and set that cadence to whatever you want to set it to. 180 is the optimum, and you can start to understand whether you are moving at the optimum cadence or not. Again, if you're going to do 350,000 strides, let's say you are doing a multi-day event, it would make a huge difference if every one of those 350,000 strides, your foot left with a burst of elastic energy. And we are actually in control of creating that. So that's something that people can do straight away.
Yeah, and I think most smart watches and watches that people have will have software that will track cadence. Do you find that they're pretty accurate?
They are. I mean, the stuff I use, where you've actually got movement sensors on limbs and stuff, is 100% laboratory type accurate. But the Garmin are within sort of 2 beats of that, so very, very close, very close. And the big thing is they're consistent. So they're good to use, and will give you a good idea of what's happening. But if you can't afford a Garmin, or if you don't want to spend that money, then you can download a free app on cadence, and that will give you a good idea as to how you're moving. Increasing your cadence isn't easy, but it's well worth working on. And not only will it ensure that you start to sink in with the elastic energy that you create, it means that you actually will have your feet moving underneath your body better as well, generally. So it's a good step forward. Postural wise, running is largely about posture. Postural wise, the big thing is to do everything tall, and we really tend to not do things tall at all. we spend most of our life sitting down now. That's just the way that it is. So we tend to do everything kind of almost hunched over. So it's very, very important to stand tall and run tall, because if we do, we create that elasticity in the body, and we actually get our skeleton supporting the weight of our body. And our head, the human head generally weighs about 12 pounds. I think Will's is probably about 16 pounds, because he has got a big head there.
Yeah, but I know, it's unfeasibly large, Shane. Thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. But generally, the average human, their head weighs 12 pounds. Now, if you're running, for every inch forward that your head comes, you can add another 10 pounds to that. So if you're running and your head is 3 inches kind of tilted in front of you, if you like, you're running around with a 42-pound head.
I'm already running around with a 42-pound head, Shane. This is a nightmare for me.
Have you ever seen one of those? You see one of those dolls, those tumble top dolls? That's what Will turn into. If he leans too far forward, you just end up in this never-ending cycle of forward rolls.
That might be a more efficient movement, I don't know. And take my legs out of the equation completely.
So typically, the average runner has a 12-pound head. If you don't run well, you are going to run with a head the size of Will's. Now, you can Google Will, and it's not attractive, and you really should. But all jokes to one side, it's your spine that actually takes the weight of that 42-pound head. Now, if you were running a multi-day event and somebody slipped 32 pounds into your pack, you'd have something to say about it. So actually running with your head 3 inches tilted forward, which is really not a lot, you're actually sticking 42 pounds of weight onto your spine. That's huge. So straight away, by moving tall and having your head on top of your shoulders, which sounds obvious, but actually we don't do it very much, can take a huge amount of weight off of the body.
So there we are. Golden advice from Shane Benzie. Put your head on top of your shoulders when you run.
Or you'll end up like me. Not to give you too much credit, Shane, but I remember you saying about running tall and making yourself tall. And this is way back when I started my training earlier last year. And it is something that stayed with me as kind of a mental tick. If I feel my form going, just to remember to be tall. Although I do remember when you first said it, thinking, how can I be taller? Like I don't understand what you mean. It was the first time I really caught myself on a run and realised that my shoulders had pulled forward, and that's pulled my head forward, and I'm just carrying myself wrong, which is something that seems to happen with fatigue. So from a personal point of view, as definitely the layman in the room, that has really helped me while I've been out.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely fundamental, and you're right. I mean, I remember us discussing it in the jungle, and so basically, the best way to stand tall is to actually lengthen the spine. Often, when you tell people to stand tall or stand up straight, they kind of thrust their chest out and kind of arch their back. I just did it in my chair now, actually, that's not the thing to do. The thing to do is to lengthen the spine and create a neutral pelvis. And what that will do, that will ensure that the skeleton actually starts to take the weight of your body. When you're moving, if you start to bend from the waist, or if that head starts to come down, your skeleton stops taking the weight of your body. And actually, essentially, your quads and your lower back jump in as scaffolding to hold your body up. Now that's, as an athlete, that's the last, and we have to treat ourselves as athletes. As an athlete, that's the last thing we want, because we want our skeleton, we want our muscles to propel us forward, not to have to work really hard just to hold us up. And you can imagine doing a multi-day event, or even just getting into running, muscles tend to injure or tire if we misuse or overuse them. So, we can get the skeleton to do the work for nothing. So it's really, really fundamental.
And I suppose it's an extra bit of importance when, like you say, muscles are tightening. You might start nice and tall and strong, but it's remembering to do that when you're 6-7 hours into a stage, isn't it? In the middle of nowhere. So just those little cues, So I suppose setting like a little reminder on your watch, or just something that will give you a bit of a cue or a reminder to stand up tall even when you're tired, could be the difference between success and failure, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when I'm coaching, if I work with somebody one-to-one, or if I work with groups, and sort of work on this concept of almost having like a 10-point self-diagnosis, or a 10-point sort of check-in that you can ask yourself as you're moving. And maybe we could get our heads together to try and get that out to the listeners or the viewers. to come up with that 10-point plan so that people can start to ask themselves that question. And it's, often something will start to hurt and you'll feel very fatigued. And actually, if you go through that 10-point plan, often it will go away because you've nailed the thing that's causing the problem.
I'm pretty sure that our listeners will want to hear that. So we are planning to release about 150 coaching videos this year as well. So we'll incorporate that in. So stay tuned, people that are listening. Those videos will come.
That's great because we're running short of ideas, Shane. That's really helpful.
Well, if you're running really short, we could do one idea per episode. So you've got 10 episodes there.
Oh, hey! Now we'll have that planned after the ice. Then we'll come down and see you, and we'll get some stuff done there.
Yeah, that would be good. Movement is all about taking ownership. Having good movement is all about taking ownership of that movement, and even having a basic understanding of what's actually happening as we're moving will allow us to have visualizations, a little bit of science behind it, and then an action to carry out. So rather than just putting a pair of trainers on and trying hard, movement actually becomes a skill that you can practice and actually get really good at.
It becomes a norm rather than something that you have to change, right?
Yeah, we can start to build muscle memory, and I'm big on fascia, so I do a lot of work with the fascial system. So if we move beautifully, as our body rejuvenates, and it's rejuvenating at a rate of knots, so if we move beautifully, as our body rejuvenates, it will re-architect itself to be stretchy or elastic or strong in the places that we want it. We show our body how to be. The fascial system, which is largely responsible for elasticity in our body, that will completely rejuvenate over a 3-year period. So, if we bumped into each other in 3 years' time, our fascial system will have completely rejuvenated. And through our movement and through our standing and sitting, we get to decide how that is. Well, that's really exciting because I think we tend to think that, well, I didn't do much running when I was young, so, I kind of haven't got that. I've come into it late, so I'll just make the best of what I've got. Your fascial system has completely rejuvenated 10 or 11 times since then.
I was thinking that when you first came on, that how good your fascial system was looking, Shane.
Your fascial system does look good from here.
Thank you very much. It's a pod, so you can't see my fascial system.
Just to go back to something you were saying there about, I'm thinking along the lines of what you can do on a day-to-day basis as well, not just what you're doing while you are out running, because that doesn't necessarily fill up more than a small percentage of your week. And something I found early on in my training was that my body was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing to it, and I kept getting injuries. One thing that I was advised to look into was I now have a standy-up desk at my office, which is great. I mean, I really enjoy looming over everybody anyway. That's something I've found really suits me.
With a 42-pound head?
Yeah, exactly. I take over the room. People are in the shade, which is great in summer, but depressing for them at this time of year. But in all seriousness, I have found my posture's better, and that's a little change I've made in my everyday life that seems to have helped. Is there any more people can be doing to train their bodies when they're not training?
Well, probably more by luck than judgment. You've probably asked a really good question there. So,
by luck than judgment. Not that I know what I'm talking about at all. Cheers, Shane.
So basically, we said earlier, running is largely about posture. But the big thing to remember is that your running posture is only ever going to be an extension of your everyday posture. How you stand and sit, to a large degree, is how you're going to run. Because the concept of tensegrity, how we're built, will dictate that your body's kind of held together in a sea of tension, okay, by your elasticity. No bone touches another bone in your body. It's all held together by our stretchy and elastic stuff. So how you stand will kind of, to a large degree, create that sea of tension that your body moves in. So if you stand, or even if you sit badly or stand badly, you're creating contraindications in your movement when you're running, which your body has really got to compensate for. So standing beautifully and sitting beautifully will help you run far more than you would ever imagine. So I guess again, it's understanding how to stand well and how to sit well. little bit difficult on a podcast. Again, that's something that we can introduce at a later date. But essentially, standing with that lengthened spine and that neutral pelvis, and actually your feet kind of facing forward as well. I know that sounds really stupid, but often we stand with splayed feet, which means the body and the muscles have to do a lot of compensating for. So if we can actually stand with our feet facing forward, that creates a lot of balance as well. So I think we should probably try and do some work together on getting out to the listeners how to stand and to sit well, because as you absolutely say, we're running for 5% of our time. The rest of our time we're sitting or standing or walking, aren't we?
You're determined to get yourself booked in for another episode here as well, aren't you, Shane?
I need the gigs, man. I'm telling you.
He's living outside. Look at him. He's living on the street.
Well, listen, I'm down south, mate, so you can actually go outside and survive for more than about 3 minutes at a time. It's quite.
Well, we won't be wearing a coat, that's for sure. But yeah, on that note, I do have some good things that you can do if you want to sit better.
Okay.
So obviously, when you are sitting, if you think about it, most of the time you'll be at work, most of the time you'll be in the car or watching TV. They're the three kind of times that we would be sat most. So you can do little things that will remind you to kind of sit in that upright position, where it's as simple as just having like a little red sticker, and you can put it on your, on your car dashboard, on the corner of your TV or on your laptop or computer monitor, that when you see it, just reminds you to straighten up, bring your bum into the back of the seat, or even take your seat higher, which will obviously lengthen your legs rather than being sat in a really low down position. That will just remind you, just like you would with running, that this is how I should be sat rather than being slouched. Because I think that the tendency is that you say, all right, I'm going to sit up nice and beautifully, and then you'll start working, and then just like running, your shoulders come forward, you get into that relaxed position, and you just need that little reminder again just to give you that correction. And then spending time in that position is going to be, well, the more time you can spend in that position is going to be better for you, right?
Yeah. Can I just say something there?
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, and we sit beautifully, and then we slowly kind of go into this awful position, and then we think, oh my goodness, I need to change that. So then we then sort of straighten our spine up in the chair, actually going from a slouch position seating, and then kind of trying to straighten that spine often means that we arch our spine. So the really good thing to do is to actually stand up. So once you realise you slouch, is stand up, lengthen that spine, get a nice neutral pelvis, and then sit back down again. That's actually really good to stand up anyway. So rather than try and find that position sitting in the chair, just stand up, get nice and tall, and then sit back down again. And that makes a big difference, because we can often get ourselves into really strange positions just by kind of shrugging ourselves around a little bit.
Get loads more squats in a day too.
And I'll tell you, another really good thing to do, and I do this with a lot of runners who do have problems with their heads. So people who do sit a lot.
Coming back to me again. Yeah.
This will be good for you. So essentially, if you're working in a computer a lot, your head does tend to come down. And really good thing to do. Certainly when you're running, to practice keeping your head nice and high, or even in everyday life, if you don't mind doing it, is to take a piece of kinesiology tape, so the stretchy sort of rock tape or kinesiology tape, there are other brands available.
We're not the BBC, Shane, you're fine. It may seem like we've got that budget, but...
Well, that's what I was told.
Yeah. The White Tiger will be with you soon, don't worry.
So take that 6-inch piece of kinesiology tape, okay, and stick it literally down the spine of your neck. So just underneath the hairline and then down the spine of your neck. Now, that isn't going to put tension on it. That isn't going to keep your head up. But as your head starts to drop, you are going to feel the tension, and it is going to remind you to keep your head high. So, you might think, well, it's a bit excessive to do it in the office place, in the workplace, but certainly when you're out running, that's a really, really good thing to do. It's a great way of reminding yourself, your head is very, very heavy, and keeping it on top of your body is fundamental.
How am I going to know where to put that tape? I mean, I don't have a hairline to work from. I feel like I'm being discriminated against.
Yeah, don't do it from your eyebrows over the top of your head. Just do it. If you were a normal geezer, then you would just do it from where the hair would be. Just
Shane Benzie is a rude guest.
Offense is the best form of defense, I find.
It's good to see that you guys have got the relationship going again.
I've lived in the jungle with this man for a few days and seen him in his pants. There really isn't anything. After that, it's sort of nothing to worry about.
I saw you in my pants, actually.
So, let's move on. I don't know what happens in the jungle stays in the jungle, right, boys?
Yeah,
So let's move on to let's take these. We've kind of give the guys that are listening some at-home tips. What I'm interested about is you go to Africa a lot. You work in Uganda. You work with a lot of the elites, we could say, the guys that are at the top of the game, the guys that take it really seriously, want to do this for a living, and obviously we don't even need to talk about how ingrained it is in some African countries. But when you look at the elites running on like TV and things, they tend to be quite chaotic in some respects, don't they? They don't kind of conform to a lot of the things that we would say would be good form, or what we would look for. Injecto would be an example. She tends to flail all over the place. What is in that? How do they get away with it? Have they kind of crafted their own way just on the way that they move? Is there something in the way that the elites move that make them better? Let's kind of open up a discussion about that.
Okay, well, I think so. Certainly, working in Ethiopia and Kenya in the training camps, the altitude training camps, you do get in front of some very good runners indeed. I think the big secret for the Africans is that they move with a lot of relaxation. When we run in the Western world, we almost tend to run with the brakes on or the shackles on. They very much open the body up and run with relaxation, and certainly not in a manufactured way. And I think that can sometimes bring out the idiosyncrasies that you're kind of talking about of slightly idiosyncratic arms or some of their movement. But generally, if you watch them, they run very tall. I know I keep talking about it, but it's very fundamental. They run very tall, but they move with a lot of relaxation, and that relaxation enables the body to move with the elasticity that helps to propel them. That was when you go out to Africa, you're looking for that magical secret of how they move. And I initially assumed it was altitude and stuff like that, but slowly but surely I just saw very elastic people running around in front of me, and then sort of wanted to try and understand better what that was. So one of the big things that they do that we don't is they're very relaxed in their movement. We've kind of forgotten how to move well, so we do it. We've had to learn it, and so we do it in a very manufactured way. So I would say relaxation in the body is the big one.
Yeah, relax, stay tall,
relax,
chill out. But I think the two other big things that I've learned that are responsible for their success is their understanding of how important rest is. So, on a typical day up in Iten in Kenya, the runners will be up at 5 in the morning, and they'll run a 30k tempo run, let's say. And I do mean tempo. I mean, I'm following them in a 4-wheel drive because those guys are moving. And they'll run their 30k tempo run, they'll get home, they'll have something to eat and then something to drink, and then they excitedly go to bed because they know that fitness is actually taking place while they're relaxing, while they're sleeping. So, really the run just creates the environment for fitness to take place. And they really get that. Now, they have the added advantage, of course, of being professional athletes, so they don't then have to go to work and stuff like that. But I think in the UK or in Europe and maybe even America, we run too much. We run too many miles and we don't put enough emphasis on eating well, drinking well and relaxing well for that fitness to actually take place and for our body to rejuvenate and strengthen. That's when it happens, when we're resting. I don't think we get that enough.
Yeah, I think it's a massive temptation that you feel like, as I said earlier, I'm doing some running, I should be running more. If I've got these big distances that I'm training to cover, then I need to be doing those distances now. I mean, from a personal point of view, definitely, it is difficult to tell myself to stop, that I'm going to get a benefit from staying still.
Yeah. If you look, I mean, this isn't just about multi-day races, but multi-day races is a good example for this. Will, you've been out there in the jungle and worked with runners, and Chris, you've obviously been to lots of different environments working with multi-day runners. You are pretty much never ever going to get a runner rock up to a checkpoint out of breath saying, I can't carry on, I'm just out of breath. People stop doing these type of races because their body breaks down. Yeah, it's not because they're cardiovascularly challenged, it's because their body breaks down. So if we are just running around doing endless miles with not great technique, we are potentially weakening our body in preparation for that event. We'd be better off running 2/3 of the miles, but making sure every mile is a beautiful mile from a movement point of view, which will actually strengthen your body and prepare you for the race. So I think we need to turn things on our head a little bit, spend a lot more time recovering and a lot more time thinking about how we move rather than just how many miles we're doing. Now, I know I'm kind of bound to say that because I'm the movement coach, but that's definitely my perspective on it. I'm working with runners. If the mileage comes down a little bit and there's a bit more emphasis on the other things, you're more successful, I think.
We're actually going to be covering that as well on an episode with Alan Ruddock. We're going to be just talking about rest recovery and how to make the most of it. So that'll be a nice little addition to that. So if you're interested in that, guys, that will be probably episode 5 or 6. And Alan's a really, really clever guy.
You'll like Alan. He'll be a much better guest than Shane has been. But we do appreciate you bearing with us.
Yeah, it's probably more expensive as well, I would imagine.
2 tigers.
The other thing I would just drop in about the African runners, which I think is actually the most important thing of all, actually, I think, is the power of the group. Okay, so when the guys are in the training camps and the ladies are in the training camps, they live together, they work together, they run together, they eat, drink and sleep together. When they're training and when they're racing, they push each other to that absolute limit. But when things aren't going well, they're there for each other and put an arm around each other. The power of the group is massive, absolutely huge out there, and that gives them definitely extra percentage. So, and I think we could learn from that to a degree as well, and probably live our lives like that. But if we push each other hard and we look after each other as a group, we're going to be a lot more successful. And certainly on the races, that happens. I think Chris, you would probably agree with that. People start to move in groups, start to help each other, but are also racing each other. They bring the best out of each other, but they help each other as well. So I think I think that's a big thing for the Africans. So I think that's a good thing for runners to adopt early on, is to push each other, but at the same time help each other.
Yeah, I mean, philosophist Shane Benzie here. Oh, look at this. This is impressive.
Well,
you're bringing them all out, aren't you? But no, I definitely agree with you. I think that a lot of it is done on the race, but not a lot of it's done in training. There are running clubs that you can become part of, but from my experience, running clubs in themselves become competitive. There's a lot of kind of competition within that, and you never really get the sense, or I've not yet found a club with the sense of we're all in this, let's all train together, because you have different vested interests or different distances. And I think that the ultra community ultimately are all after the same things, and it's only going to be a matter of time before running clubs start popping up that are just interested in ultramarathon runners, in which case I think that's going to be a beautiful thing. I think it's
yeah, definitely. And the more of a community, we don't have to be in the same postcode, don't even have to run with each other to a degree. I mean, it's good if you can, but just sharing ideas and just sort of helping each other where you can, creating that community feel is good. There is no doubt we are more powerful as a group. And if we go back to when we used to run for a living, catching animals, running away from animals, we did that in groups. It's not odd that we come together in great numbers to run, and love doing that, because that's kind of what we used to do.
What a beautiful way to finish.
Yeah, a lovely note to end on there from Mr. Benzie.
He's upped his game on this. I'm really impressed with you, Benzie. You've got the outside thing going on, you're finishing with some motivational quotes.
I feel good. I feel great.
I feel really good about
it. Off the side of my head.
Yeah. Excellent. Well,
and our commitment to try and make this community, what we'll do is we've got our own Strava group. There's a community. There's a Western type of community. We have our own Strava group at Beyond the Ultimate, so you can join that and you can start adding the miles in. We also have our own forums and things in which you can talk kit, you can talk training advice, and which we are involved in, and even you're in a couple of the groups as well, Benzie. So we can really get a community thing going on there, and hopefully it becomes a beautiful thing over the years.
Absolutely. That sounds good to me.
All right, mate. Well, thanks for joining us. We're definitely going to have you on again, even if we'll.
Yeah, no, I'm willing to do it. I'll maybe go off screen next time so he's not distracted by the size of my head. I feel like it became a dominant feature as it does in every room.
From down here anyway.
But yeah, we'll definitely have you on again. There's definitely some things that we can go into in greater detail. Thank you very much, Mr. Benzie.
Pleasure. Speak to you soon.
Bye.